As you learn about the narcissistic pattern, it's also wise to reflect on the much healthier alternatives. Now, below you're going to find a link to my new extensive course called Ready, Set, Connect. It addresses both the mindset and the skills involved in gratifying relationships, and I hope you'll find it to be quite therapeutic. I want to talk with you today about a difficult topic because the conclusions we're going to draw here today are not necessarily what you want to hear. But where I'm going to go with this today is I want you to recognize that when you have ongoing engagements with a strongly narcissistic person, typically there's going to be a price that you have to pay. Sometimes it's a very strong price or a hefty price. It may be small in that you may have an event that doesn't go well and you have to deal with a disappointment. But many times the price that you have to pay is a very large one where it impacts your whole way of life or who you're going to be connected to or the community that you're associated with. Now, before we get into some thoughts and ideas about this, I want to give you some illustrations of people that I've talked with who have had to come to terms with a very strong price that was being extracted from them because of their relationship with a narcissist. And as I go through these illustrations that I've jotted down, I want you to see how many of these you might be able to relate with. For example, I've talked with people who would say something to the effect of, I wound up losing my connection to a dear family member because of that narcissist. Sometimes it's a child with parental alienation. Sometimes it's an elderly parent because somebody else took over their care in a nursing home. Sometimes it's a niece or a nephew or a sister-in-law or a grandkid. Many times, because of that narcissist being so disruptive and controlling and overbearing, you lose the relationship and you so dearly want to get it back, but it's not going to happen. That's a very high price. Or I've heard people talk about, they might say something like, well, I got sued by a person that I thought that I could trust, whether it's in a business setting or over some sort of family squabbles, many times with wills and things like that. Other people might say, well, I was ostracized from people who told me that I no longer fit inside their religious circles. You start asking questions or espousing beliefs that they don't go along with, and you thought that they stood for love. It's like, no, we stand for conformity. Get out of here. And there's a price that you have to pay for that. Or if you express or live into lifestyle preferences that are not the same as your family members or your social circle, you can be ostracized for that, and that can be a high price. I've heard people say, well, because I have different political persuasions, I no longer am accepted in certain circles of people that I used to respect. That can be a high price. And in this polarized world that we live in right now, that's a really strong theme that I tend to hear. Or I've heard somebody say, I went to the grocery store and I was completely ignored by somebody who had become a flying monkey of that narcissist that was in my life. Or other individuals will say, I find myself having to measure my words very carefully when I'm in the presence of this individual. Or some others will say, well, the price I have to pay is I'm not really allowed to follow my plans or my priorities in the ways that I would like. And so I know that you could probably add some of your thoughts and your experiences to that list, but let's understand that when you're dealing with narcissists, these people use a style of thinking that we call splitting. It's very black and white. You're either with me or you're not with me. You're either correct or you're not correct. You're on the team, you're not on the team. And basically, there's one thing that they want from you when you're in an ongoing engagement with them, and that is they want your conformity. And it's very important for you to recognize you never have been, nor will you ever be considered an equal to that narcissist. That's not how they think. They think in terms of win or lose. Your needs are always going to be secondary to theirs. And even if they're occasionally friendly or they seem to be cooperative, you're being measured. They're trying to figure out how far of an inroad can I get with you. And you simply can't trust it because they can turn on you in the blink of an eye. And there are times when narcissists may talk magnanimously about their ethics or their morality or their standards and their principles. And then you realize they're just blowing smoke up my rear end. It's just all expedient for whatever the need or the desire of the moment they have. They'll talk about it, but then if something comes along that goes contrary to that, they're willing to ditch that so that they can maintain power. And then when you're able to see it for what it is and you try to call them out, they're going to go into high stubborn mode. That's what they do, and they will appeal to that power mindset. They'll go into an authoritarian attitude toward you. They can become bossy and critical. They admit no mistakes, and then they'll just seek ways to dole out punishment toward you. That's what I mean when I say there's a high price that you have to pay when you're engaging with these people. Then they'll never, and I know you're not supposed to say never, but they'll never sit down with you and say, hey, let's talk about how you and I can coordinate. Instead, what they'll say or think or imply is you're going to regret the day that you ever came into disagreement with me. You ever had those experiences? And then here comes the venom. They're full of anger. They're full of rage. They may withdraw in a passive aggressive kind of way from any kind of effort to coordinate with you. And then that's where they go into these manipulations where that list came in that I just gave you. They'll manipulate you through money, through access to children or friends or groups of other individuals. They'll do whatever they need to do to smear your reputation. They'll cut you out of work favors or social favors. The goal of the narcissist is your subjugation. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, how could anyone in good conscience treat a fellow human being so disdainfully? And the answer is, well, people with good conscience don't do that. Let's remember, narcissists have an underdeveloped conscience. They can know intellectually the difference between right and wrong, but when it comes down to it, there's one thought and one thought alone that drives them, and that is, what's in it for me? How do I get power? How do I have superiority? And so when we talk about narcissism, we're talking about people that have that high need for control, and they're very entitled and no empathy at all. And it leads you to having to draw certain conclusions that you may not want to make. And again, I go back and say, sometimes the price that you have to pay cannot be avoided. A simple analogy is sometimes you invest, let's say, in the stock market, and then whatever stock that you invested in goes way down, and sometimes you have to be smart enough to know when to take your loss and move on. The same can be true psychologically. There may be times when you're just going to have to say, as much as I regret it, I'm going to have to take the hit, and I'm going to have to move on. So one of the first things that I want you to consider as you figure out what you're going to do when they extract a certain price on you is you're going to need to individualize your efforts to find a reasonable way of life. Now, do you understand what I'm saying? You want to have coordination with that person, and how many times have you pled with that individual? Please quit doing this, or you can't say this, or if only you would do A instead of B, then we could make this work. No, they don't coordinate. So you're going to have to individualize your thoughts and your efforts, and you're going to have to also recognize that you may indeed have to accept the fact, and that doesn't mean condone, but accept the fact that the price is going to be there, and there will not be fairness or equity. And at some point, your only real option is to move on from that person and cut your losses and go. And then there's going to be a grief process. There's going to be some pain that can be associated with that. What you can do, though, is you can focus on what you're capable of controlling. Keeping in mind, you can't control another person's opinion toward you. You can't control the priorities they have. You can't control some of their decisions that they make. But you can control your lifestyle priorities where you're able then put consequences into play, set stipulations, and have boundaries in your life. And then what you can also do is focus on your good character. Okay? So I know that many of you, it's like, well, I don't want to have to pay the price because, like I said in that list of things, sometimes the price is very steep. And yet, there it is. So let's keep in mind that despite the price that you may have to pay for having been associated with a narcissistic individual, you will have one enormous ingredient that I hope that you're able to draw upon that the narcissist will never have access to. And that is, you can draw upon your self-respect. It's sad that a narcissist is willing to say, I can kick that to the curb. Don't kick your own self-respect to the curb. You're on Team Healthy here. I'm hoping you can stand in dignity, respect, and civility. And when that narcissist goes away thinking they have been the winner, that's not your argument that you have to win. I know that this is a difficult topic, and I know that some of you have shed tears and you've had a lot of angst. But I'm hoping that what we can do here on the channel is to help you figure out how you can become a better person despite some of the influences that have been there in your life. If you've not already hit that subscribe button, I would encourage you to do so, and we'll keep more videos coming your way. Hit the notification bell that goes along with it. If you need some therapy, and many times when you're trying to deal with issues like this, therapy would be a very necessary thing for you to seek. We have a sponsor, the BetterHelp people, and their link is below. And I've come to appreciate so much my association with these individuals, with this group. And so if you have a need for online therapy, and that's become a very viable way to do things now, go below and go through the link and seek that out. In addition, I have courses. We have 3 of them now. Ready, Set, Connect. It's all about having healthy engagements with individuals. This is me about establishing boundaries. Free to Be about finding yourself despite the controllers, and their multiple lessons and videos and written materials and questions that are walk you through a therapeutic path towards those kind of issues. In addition, we have my books and other resources below. Okay, I know you want fairness, and I know you don't want to have to pay a price when you're with these individuals, but we're dealing with some individuals who do have that underdeveloped conscience. What you can have, though, is, I'm going to reiterate, you can have your sense of well-being that's built upon good character, and as you engage with other individuals beyond those narcissists, I hope that you're able to have decency and reasonableness, because ultimately, I genuinely hope that you can find your pattern of life that leads toward peace.